Welcome to the first X's and Argos film study of the season. My name is Ben Grant. The focus of this week's session was decided by a Twitter poll, and the people have spoken. We're going to take a look at the performance of the offensive line. Now, if you're looking for a technical breakdown that focuses on technique and highly complex protection calls, this probably isn't the video for you. Our primary goal at X's and Argos is to educate and not intimidate. And with that in mind, please feel free to ask questions. Send them along via Twitter, via email. We're happy to answer any questions you have. We want people to learn more about the game. I've been playing and coaching for over 30 years, and I learn something new about football every day. And not only that, I discover I was wrong about something that I thought I knew about football almost every day as well. So please don't hesitate to send us your questions. All right, let's dive in here. Considering the Argos were starting two rookies in Peter Nicastro and Dejon Allen, the line played pretty well. It may not always look like that through certain parts of this video because for the most part, I'm going to be highlighting things that need to be fixed because those are areas where I feel like we can learn a little bit more. But I will finish up with a segment that illustrates how well the line played at times as well. Something I want to go over before we begin is just a quick labeling of the gaps. So this is what we call A gap on either side of the center. B gap is between the guard and tackle. And then C gap is outside the tackle or between the tackle and tight end. You can't always block everyone. Sometimes the defense will send more guys than you can block, but regardless of the system or the offensive line coach or the play call, you always want to protect from inside out. And so that means if there's someone coming free, it can never be through A gap, ideally not through B gap either. And if you can help it not through the blind side of C gap, that's not ideal either, but sometimes it just has to be. Now, Calgary did some pretty nasty stuff. They schemed brilliantly. They timed their blitzes really well. And some of Toronto's protection calls seemed to sort of backfire, sometimes leading to a free runner. So this is just a base look here from Calgary. The Argos might be in a bob or a big on big here, meaning that they're looking to man up basically with the four defensive linemen and the Mac. White, meanwhile, probably has a dual call, so he's looking at both the Will and the Sam. So as the play begins, the weak side end bails, and both the Mac and the Sam are coming. Technically, they should still be fine with 6 blocking 5, but if you look at the Mac here, there's a twist in here at the last second, and this really messes things up. So Bladek and Blake end up double teaming the 3-tech. Nicastro's left with no one to block, and both the Mac and the Sam are coming through B. White does a great job here picking up the Sam, and Campbell, realizing that the Mac is free, correctly leaves his end to get a piece. But now there's no shelf left whatsoever for Bethel Thompson to step up into, and he's standing in the path of the contain man that Allen is riding around. In an ideal world, Campbell and Allen would pick up their contain men, Bladek would take the Mac, Blake and Nicastro would double team the 3-tech, and then White would pick up the Sam. But it just so rarely works out like that when it's perfectly executed as it was here by Calgary. The communication would have had to been just absolutely on point, immediate. And you're not going to get that from a line that's only been playing together for a few weeks. There's a similar problem on this play. The identification looks the same as the previous play, 4 linemen and a Mac. White has a flat route, but he would probably stay if the Will was coming. He's not, so White releases. It's only a 4-man rush, but it's not the 4 they were counting on. The end drops back, and the boundary half engages. So Allen picks up the end, but now we've got Nicastro, Blake, Bladek, and Campbell blocking 2 guys, and the boundary half is running free. Bethel Thompson first looks to dump it to the hot route, which is White, and that's normally what you would do on this play when you see a halfback blitz coming. But Deshaun Amos has already filled in that gap, so he just has to get rid of it. I love this play design from Calgary. A lot of quarterbacks would have unloaded that immediately to White, and either he would have been crushed by Amos or the ball would have been picked off. So that's a really nice throwaway from McLeod. The Argos had a heck of a time picking up late action in this game, especially through A-gap. Here, Mechie times his run really well, and he just sails through untouched. That just can't happen. And here is again, clean through A. They're sending 7, and the Argos only have 6 blockers. But like I said before, you can't have the unblocked man being a guy coming through A-gap. It can't, that can't be the answer. You've got to pick it up such that if there is an unblocked guy, he's coming through C, and ideally not on the blind side. But A is just an absolute no-no. This one's sort of interesting, and it goes to illustrate another point that I want to make too. So this is the first play of the second half, the play where Ricky Collins Jr. took a jailbreak screen deep into Calgary's end, and then he had the ball knocked away. But I want to focus on the line play. So on a jailbreak screen or a slip screen, you want your lineman to the boundary side to release almost immediately so that they can get in front of the receiver and annihilate the DBs, make some room downfield. Here, Nick Castro is playing center, and what I thought was sort of interesting is he doesn't touch the nose. The nose is lined up in a 0, so like right in front of him, and he doesn't even put a hand on him. And when Richards gets out into space, he cleans out the Sam. Nick Castro never quite gets to his block, but that sometimes happens. So I spoke with Coach Dinwiddie about this play, about him leaving the nose, and this is exactly how Coach wants this run. I had this down as a mistake by Nick Castro when I was grading the linemen for this game. I had written this down as a mistake, so obviously I have to change that. But this also shows you how grading systems are sometimes flawed. Unless they're done by the team's coaches, there's going to be a degree of error in there. So Nick Castro doesn't have a mistake on this play in terms of leaving that nose, but it's the coaches that know that, not necessarily people watching from the outside. Blake had some trouble there too. He hasn't played center in years though. Blake is one of the best guards in the league, but coming into the season, he was supposed to be the 3rd or 4th option at center. It's just not a position he was supposed to play, so it's really hard to blame him. There were obviously some communications issues. Here, Bladek clearly thinks that this is a double team, but Blake is actually double teaming the stunt on the other side. So Wigan ends up getting through, and the confusion that ensues, Allen does the right thing here. He picks up the inside of the two men, but you've got Adeyemi Berglund running free, which isn't ideal. Let's look at Ouellet here. He squares up nicely on Mechie, trying to twist through B-gap. That's a really nice play. The running backs, for the most part, did a fantastic job in blitz pickup. This is a weird one. Just a 4-man rush, no mugging, no one coming late. I don't know what the call was, but for some reason, Allen and Richards double the 3-tech, and they leave the end for White. I don't really see the reason for doing that. It's just an unusual solution to what isn't really presenting much of a problem. Making it worse is that Allen and Richards actually lose that double team, and Rose just folds Bethel Thompson in half. Obviously, there's going to be some shouting in the O-line film room this week about this play. This is probably a double team that shouldn't have happened from the beginning, but if it is going to happen, you can't let that player slip through and hit your quarterback. I had Allen graded as the team's best run blocker this week, but I had him at the bottom in terms of pass protection. Playing left tackle as a CFL rookie without a preseason is nuts. And he also had some really tough matchups. So here on this play, he takes on an inside power move. He fits it pretty well, and he's eventually able to stop his momentum and anchor, but the depth that he allows forces McLeod to scramble. And then here you've got Richards and DeCastro who have set a really nice shelf here, but they're not expecting to lose their guys to the outside. But because Bethel Thompson scrambles, Rose chases him out that way. He gets away, and then he executes his finishing move on Bethel Thompson and just pile drives him 6 feet into the ground. And then Allen's most crucial miss was on this last offensive snap prior to the kneel downs. They're in position for a game-winning field goal. No turnovers, no sacks. That's it. That's the priority on this play. Nothing else matters. No turnovers, no sacks. Allen coming out of his stance is a little too cautious, and then Lemon just takes away his hands and he's gone. This ends up being a 12-yard loss, which is brutal, but it could easily have been a sack fumble. If Lemon chops with the other hand, this is a fumble, and maybe Calgary scoops and scores. They certainly recover the football. It would have been bad news. Fortunately, Bethel Thompson hangs onto the football, and fortunately, Boris Beatty has a cannon, so those extra 12 yards didn't really matter, but this could have been a game changer. It wasn't all gloom and doom for the Argos line. As I promised, let's take a look at some of the good plays and some of the really nice gameplay that we saw from the offensive line. When the Argonauts knew what was coming, I had them graded over 10 points higher than when Calgary threw in a wrinkle. Faking the snap count like we see on this play was a great tool for them. Now, you can't do it on every single play, but if the call comes in quickly enough, you could probably mix in a few more of these next week just to help the line out a little bit, because it really did make a difference. Straight up 4-man rush, no problem. Nice, easy pocket. Again, great pocket. McLeod could step into these, but I get his hesitation after what was happening earlier in the game. And he's got a rocket arm, so it doesn't really matter that much. He can throw off his back foot and just rifle it in there. Beautiful pocket on this play. This is much more fun to watch than the earlier plays that we were going over. I'm not sure we're learning as much here, but it's certainly more enjoyable. He could have sat here all day on this one. You see why Calgary had to bring exotic pressure, because when they didn't, they got burnt. This is gorgeous. Check out Nicastro picking up this loop. So this is sort of a cool front. You know something's going to happen in here. Nicastro rides his man, passes him to Blake. He knows someone's coming back, because someone's always coming back. And then when Wigan emerges from the wash, Nicastro picks him up just as comfortably as wearing aftershave in the morning. Look at this thing of beauty here. This is a 5-man pressure. So the field side end bails, and the Sam and the Will both come flying through B. Richards washes out the Will. White knocks the Sam into like week 3 or 4 of the regular season. Nicastro and Blake, or sorry, that's Bladek. Nicastro and Bladek keep the shelf high. And then Campbell and Allen just eliminate the contained rushers. This is perfect. Let's watch this one again. Love this. And we'll finish with the biggest clutch play of the game. So this was the game-tying touchdown pass to Gittins Jr. We've got an eagle front. Mechie's coming too. And this had been death all day for the Argos, but they finally picked it up. They clogged both A-gaps. Now, Bladek, who was my highest graded offensive lineman in the passing game, is a little shaky here. He thinks that Campbell's going to slide over and lead the end, but he recovers just enough to get a quick little shot on Lemon. There's a free runner through C, but check out Eric Rogers. He doubles back like the hero he is, picks him up on the blind side. It wasn't perfect, but it got the job done. And that pretty much sums up what we saw from the Argonauts this week on the offensive line. Not perfect, but it got the job done. Obviously, there's room for improvement, and I expect this unit to put on a better show Friday night in Winnipeg after some valuable time in the film room with Coach McAdoo and some time on the field, just working out some of these wrinkles. I hope you enjoyed this week's X's and Argos film session. Let's do it again next week.